Hey everyone, welcome to Question Period Rewind. I'm Donna Skelly, the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. Get ready to travel back in time to 1986, the year when Microsoft went public, the Oprah Winfrey Show was first syndicated, and when Wayne Gretzky was at the top of his game with the Edmonton Oilers, breaking his own NHL record for the most assists and the most points in a season. These are records, by the way, that he still holds to this day. Now, let's take a listen to what the House was talking about.
The next item of business. Order. Oral questions. The Leader of the Opposition.
The Attorney General joins hands with those Liberals who secretly seek to besmirch the reputations of honest and decent members.
Question. Order. Order. I have called for questions. The standing order states that the Leader of the Opposition is entitled to questions. Question, please.
And we are entitled to a degree of responsibility and respect from the Attorney General, which we can't get. Well, I'm embarrassed as a fellow solicitor, I can tell you that.
Question.
That was a disgraceful performance by someone whose responsibility is to uphold the law in this province.
Order. Do you have a question?
I have a question, Mr. Speaker, which relates to the very issue that the Minister of Health has been speaking about for oh so long this past year, which is accessibility to the healthcare system. Now, the Minister will know that he spent a great deal of time and a great deal of effort and a great deal of goodwill, which he had to trade off, in seeking to ensure what he considered accessibility through Bill 94. However, the real accessibility problem is being faced by heart patients at the Toronto General Hospital. He will know that last Thursday, seven of their 21 operating rooms were closed. 3 of those operating rooms have been closed for a month, often the busiest month of the year. He will know that over 10% of their intensive care beds are totally closed. 25% of all their operations are being canceled, and all heart operations for patients not already in hospital have been canceled this week. All of this, Minister, is because of the severe shortage of nurses in Ontario.
Question.
Could you tell us what steps you have already taken to ensure accessibility to heart surgery at Toronto General Hospital over the past several months?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think that the honourable gentleman has underlined what I think this party has recognized for a long time, and that is the indispensable nature of the nursing profession to providing care in this province. We have no real facts at this point to indicate exactly why there is a stress on the supply of nurses in the intensive care units of that particular facility. We know that there have been surveys which have been undertaken prior to this time, which indicates the greatest need, as you point out, is in the metropolitan Toronto area. There is a review committee, or an advisory committee, rather, to the ministry, which does deal with nursing and is headed up by a well-renowned individual in the healthcare field, who will be reviewing the material which will be made available as a result of a survey done in November of this year, and we will be taking a look at what can be done as a result of the statistics generated there. I understand, as well as the members of this House, that the Hospital Corporation itself is attempting to recruit by sending their people, as I understand from the reports in the press in the weekend, to the Maritimes to look for extra people to deliver service in those particular parts of those hospital facilities. I can tell the honourable gentleman that I have developed a high degree of interest in this, particularly over the last 3 or 4 months, as I have heard from people that problems in intensive care have placed many nurses at a stage where they make a decision not to continue on in providing practice in that area.
Supplementary.
Minister, your response has been that you will be studying some of the statistics. I remind you that you have a nursing manpower committee in the ministry, which has been there for some time. I tell you, too, that we spoke to the Toronto General Hospital, and they have indicated to us that your committee has been aware of this problem, not since November, but for many, many months. And you and your committee have done nothing whatsoever to alleviate the circumstance. Could you report to the House not your desire and your awareness of the current problem and your desire to do something about it now, but could you tell us what you have been doing during the last 16 months to alleviate a problem which was absolutely predictable, all relating to demographics, the number of people in the system, the number of nurses in training, the number of nurses who had chosen to leave the profession, all of which was absolutely predictable, pointed out to your committee by the Toronto General Hospital
Minister,
and others for several months. What specifically have you done or failed to do that has caused all these surgical procedures to be canceled?
The question's been asked.
The honourable gentleman knows full well that from his days as Minister of Health, that the question of nursing manpower has been and will continue to be a cyclical one. There are times when there is a heavy supply of people who are going into the profession. There are other times when, in fact, there are not as many. We have had, in fact, I've had friends of mine who trained to be nurses who ultimately went to the United States to practice because there was not a market for them. And I've come well to understand the fact that those people have returned at various times to fill in the gaps in predicting where the need for nursing manpower is. That advisory committee, which you spoke about, has been in existence, as you said, for a long time. But there doesn't yet seem to be a clear reading for this particular problem, which is in the nature of intensive care units and critical care units and in the operation facilities as to why the decisions have been made to get out or exit from the practice of nursing in those areas. We are trying to come to grips with that, and that may help us predict much better how to deal with the cyclical nature of need of nursing manpower. But I can tell the honourable gentleman that my advisors have been, as I understand it, doing what they can to predict when these problems occur. It's not something that I have been unfamiliar with. It's something, in fact, which I have taken the liberty of discussing when I visited some of the facilities and the heads of some of those departments in other hospitals to see if there is something put in place. I can tell you that some of those places have put in special committees to help nurses feel more comfortable in providing service.
Minister, you've compounded the fear of neglect on your behalf. You are saying this afternoon that you are not unfamiliar with the problem. You are admitting that you've known about it for some time. Given the fact you've known about it for some time, given the fact you have a nursing manpower committee, and Minister, given the fact that during the negotiations with the medical profession, you personally offered to set up a fund to attract world-class doctors to come to Ontario or to stay in Ontario, how can you possibly explain the fact that there are dozens of heart surgical procedures being canceled today as we speak, with people, according to the hospital, likely to die on the waiting list because of that cancellation, and say that you have done nothing to attract some nurses, to increase their remuneration, to set up a fund to attract them as you are willing to attract doctors? How can you stand there today and say you've done nothing to deal with this accessibility problem through all of the long months?
Order. The question's been asked. Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I didn't say to the honourable gentleman that nothing had been done. There has been a lot of legwork done in terms of preparing for how we deal with this particular problem. I can tell the honourable gentleman in terms of recruiting people inside hospitals that, as he well knows, that there is a requirement of management to take the steps that they see necessary to fulfill their manpower needs. There is no way, Mr. Speaker, of us making every management decision within the hospital corporations, but I can tell the honourable gentleman that we will take what steps my advisory committee think are worthwhile, and that, in fact, I understand, Mr. Speaker, that already, as this gentleman rises to talk to us today, that there are recruiting operations going on under the auspices of the Hospital Corporation about which he speaks. And I hope, Mr. Speaker, that he will be able to stand on another occasion and indicate that, in fact, they have been successful. because I believe that they will be successful because we have a system here that is accommodating to the provision of high-quality care to the people of the province.
New question, the member for Brantford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Industry, Trade and Technology and is regarding WIDA Systems Canada. The Minister will appreciate that we on this side of the House are stunned by your statement today. And I would like to go quickly through the points with the Minister. Our understanding is that persons close to the Liberal Party and to this government intervened to make this investment happen, that the company has gone into receivership. The company is now refusing to offer further cooperation to the Public Accounts Committee, and most astoundingly, Mr. Speaker, that the receiver is going to be asked to review the operations of WIDA to determine the value of the technology and the ultimate viability of the enterprise. A bald statement, as if this hasn't already been done by the minister's officials. We are absolutely appalled. My question to the minister, Mr. Speaker, is this. Are you prepared to immediately recommend to your colleague, the Attorney General, that a full judicial inquiry be held into this whole matter?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I should tell the member that we have made a court application for receivership. That went in this morning and was put over until this afternoon, so it's being dealt with this afternoon. So we won't know until later this afternoon whether that has been accepted. As you know, both the committee, the Public Accounts Committee, has been looking into this, and also an investigation being done by Mr. Bedell. We have kept in very close contact with the committee. Mr. Runciman has been notified of the actions that we have taken, and we'll see pending what happens on it.
What about the build companies?
Supplementary, the member for Cochrane South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My supplementary question is the Minister of Industry, Trade and Technology. The Minister will be aware that the committee unanimously found that the nature of the investment dramatically changed as a result of a breakfast meeting on the morning of April 10th, 1986 at the Inn in the Park, attended by three individuals who were involved in this matter. Will the Minister have a judicial inquiry not only into the failure of this company, but into the decisions that were made that morning, whether or not they were proper and in accordance with the terms of the mandate of the IDEA Corporation and the Ontario Development Corporation?
Minister.
That's right. Mr. Speaker, well, first of all, as I say, the investigation is ongoing. We would like to have we're having the company of Pete Marwick go in and have a look at it. We feel that there is still considerable value within that company, which we hope to save, and that is why we have sent them in, and the investigation will be continuing by Mr. Bedell.
Final supplementary, the member for Cochrane South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our concern is, first of all, that the documentation be retained, and we're talking about not only corporate documentation, but personal documentation, and as well as the Honourable Minister will be aware, over $1 million was distributed on the closing day to certain individuals who claimed to have a debt owed to them by this company, and that debt was unsubstantiated by the lawyers representing IDEA Corporation or by the people that were working for IDEA Corporation prior to that money being paid. For all of these reasons, will the Minister not agree that a judicial inquiry is warranted to get to the bottom of this?
Minister.
Speaker, at the present time, as I have mentioned, Pete, it is hoped that Pete Marwick will be granted permission to go in and act as receivers. Also, as I say, Mr. Bedell is continuing to look at it, and I can assure you of our full cooperation with the Public Accounts Committee on this matter.
New question. New question, the member for Sudbury East.
I have a question of that tough-talking minister, the Minister of Labour, with respect to his new regulations. The minister will know that there are 7,000 workers in this province exposed to styrene, 1,000 of them in the reinforcement plastics industry. Yet the minister has set two standards for the province. The standard for reinforced plastics industry, which is twice as high as the standard for other industry in the manufacture of styrene. On December the 6th, the workers in this province will be protected by the new regulation from levels of styrene 50 parts per million. But workers in the reinforced plastic industry will have to endure levels of 100 parts per million higher, because the Ministry of Labour cares more about industry than he does about the health of workers. Will the minister tell us why this double standard has been exists, and why he will not force the reinforced plastics industry to live up to the same standard that everyone else in the province has to accept?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm really amazed that the honourable member is asking this question today. The honourable member surely is aware that the standard which is proposed under the new regulation is exactly the standard that is proposed under the proposed designation of styrene, a designation which has gone as far as having a public meeting. That public meeting, Mr. Speaker, was held at the end of September. We're being absolutely consistent with the levels which are being proposed under designation. Mr. Speaker, I'm aware of the fact that there is a different level of exposure allowed without the use of respirators. But I think my honourable friend would want to move quickly to point out that any worker in the reinforced plastics industry who is exposed to a level above 50 and below 100 would have to have a proper respirator. I think the honourable member as well, Mr. Speaker, would want to point out that for the first time on December the 6th, the exposure levels for styrene as well as hundreds of other chemicals will have the force of law, something they didn't have before.
Supplementary?
Law with designated substances, 9 of them, and you never once used it, so what are you talking about? And you're the talking minister who said you will engineer out these conditions. You will not force respirators on workers. Tell me why, since you go around the province bragging about how you're going to make these things be engineered out, you're now prepared to have workers working in places of exposure at twice anywhere else, and you're the one who's by regulation is forcing the workers to put on respirators. Tell me why you're doing that.
Minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I would think that my honourable friend would be aware, and sure he is, that the levels of the exposure level of 100, which is the legal limit which comes into effect this Saturday, is exactly without the use of respirators, is exactly the same level that is being used in the United States. Exactly the same level. And I'm sure my honourable friend would be aware of that. I'm sure my honourable friend would also, Mr. Speaker, be aware that the level is the same as being used in other provinces. I'm sure as well, Mr. Speaker, that the honourable member will be aware, at least I would hope he would be aware, that a great number of companies in the reinforced plastics industry do not today even reach the level of 100. Now, if what my friend is saying, and we're going to have to ensure that they've reached that level, but if my friend is suggesting that the reinforced plastics industry can reach 50 this Saturday without the use of respirators, then he should stand up and say so. Because I suggest to you, my friend, that if the reinforced plastic industry had to reach the level of 50 this Saturday without respirators, we wouldn't have much of an industry as of Monday morning.
Supplementary?
When did you last beat your wife?
Supplementary?
In Sweden, they've reached a level of 25 parts per million. Oh, they have a styrene industry. Don't tell me they don't use styrene in Sweden. You're nuts. Will the minister tell me why?
Order. 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 I know the member for Sudbury East sometimes gets a little carried away, but would the honourable member just watch his language and ask the supplementary?
Mr. Speaker, I'm afraid I'm not being carried away by his silliness. It's that double standard.
Order. Do you have a supplementary? Okay.
By all means. Can the minister tell me why the workers at Seal Coat Canada in Mississauga, who make this chemical coating and who produce fan ducts, whose union rep has been after you complaining for over a year about the problems in the plant of excess styrene, by the way, which cause drowsiness, reproductive problems, and possibly cancer. The minister knows this to be fact. The inspector has written orders. Your inspector has been writing orders for over a year now, even though the company has been ordered to ventilate the plant the ministry has not allowed the extension or ignored the company's proposal at the same time, with the result that the ventilation is still not in place 1 year after the orders started to be written by your staff. Can the ministry explain why the ministry held up the installation of ventilation at this plant, and tell us why the standard that the company will have to meet is twice as high as the standard for companies that manufacture styrene?
Minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, over a number of months, the ministry has been working with this company over the last year. On a number of occasions, we've inspected the company's facilities. We've issued a number of orders, not just for styrene, but also for storage of flammables. A number of stop work orders have been issued. I can say only to the honourable gentleman that the orders for adequate ventilation were issued on July the 17th of this year, and the company submitted sketches for the ventilation on October the 10th. Earlier this month, the ministry engineer looked at the drawings, and since the time for compliance with the order has passed, a notice of non-compliance has been issued by the ministry. We're concerned to ensure that the health and safety of the workers at Seal Coat are protected, and we hope that the installation, Mr. Speaker, of the ventilation equipment can be completed as quickly as possible.
New question? Member for Scarborough West.
Hi, is anywhere else? Mr. Speaker, I have a question arising from the visit today to the legislature of workers in the various transition homes for battered women around the province, and the question's for the Minister of Community and Social Services. I want to know what happened to the kind of commitment that was made by the Premier during the last election to the notion that the centres should be, in fact, seen as the major hub for dealing with the problem of battered women in this province. Why is it that they still have to spend so much of their time fundraising on their own? Why is there so much of such a lack of concern of payment for their services, such a heavy reliance on volunteers, and why have you still not given them guaranteed core funding this long into your term?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, there are 75 transition houses across the province that are funded by this government and this ministry. The difficulty that was brought to our attention was the lack of funding that they could count on a regular basis, as opposed to just the per diems. And the honourable member will be aware of the fact that a decision was made to allocate $3,000 per bed for counselling fees that would be ongoing. The member would also be aware of the fact that we recently announced an increase of in excess of $5 million that was going to be used for a number of services, but one of them would be for children's counselling in the centres themselves. That money has now been flown to our area offices, and negotiations are going on with the various transition houses as to the sharing of that money. The member will also be aware of the fact that additional dollars are going to be allocated through community resources for counselling of both victims and offenders, so that if there's any possibility at all of reconciling the family unit, that certainly would be done. And finally, the member may not be aware of the fact, but recently my colleague, the Minister of Housing, my colleague, the Minister of Housing, has provided support.
Order. Supplementary.
You're talking too much.
Mr. Speaker, I feel like that the minister's statement is confusing the facts, if I might put it that way, not to use stronger language. I'd be interested to know, for instance, how much of that $5 million is actually going to the centres, the houses. I think only a small portion of it is going there. On the September 16th announcement that you made about all of this, you indicated that money would be coming for child care workers. Do you realize that even in places like Toronto, there is presently a 6 to 8 week waiting period to get children any kind of psychological assistance? Often the children and their mothers have left the home by the time that assistance in one of the mental health centers is available, and we're no longer, that program is no longer available to the kids involved. Can you tell us specifically how your child care announcements will improve the situation and when the money is available? Because according to these people today, none of them have heard from you or your offices about any negotiations, sir.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, a member of my staff this past summer went around to every single one of the transition houses and asked exactly what the needs were based upon their assessment, the frontline people who are actually working in those houses. One of the first recommendations was additional fund for the children while they were in the house. Up until this point in time, the recommendation had been that those children should use other community services, such as children's aid societies, children's mental health centers. But the recommendation was that the money should flow directly to the houses so that they can help the children while they are in that house. That money has now been allocated to our area offices and will be allocated to the centers. And that's the recommendation that was made to us. That's the one that's going to be met.
Final supplementary.
You'll notice, Mr. Speaker, that the minister has still ducked the fact that that's only about $1 million out of the $5 million, and the rest is going to other services in the community, not to the centers. And you know that's the case. As an example, sir, that you're moving away from this concentration and emphasis on the centers and onto other kinds of programs, how many new centers will you be opening in this province this year, given that you know that all of these centers are turning away women on a regular basis because they cannot look after them?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member will be aware of the fact that that in Toronto a 24-hour-a-day telephone network was set up just a year ago. They celebrated their first anniversary this past week. And the purpose of that is to be sure that the spaces that are available are known on the network, so that if a woman goes to any center and can't get the service she needs, she can be immediately told where else that service would be available. The second part of the member's question is there are 4 new centers that are in the development stage right at this point in time. And the third part of the member's question was the allocation of money. There was a total of $5 million allocated. A little over $3 million was to my ministry. $1 million is going to go to the centers in various forms. The other 2 is for the public education program, which that member and several others have said is necessary, and for the community counseling program, which that member and other members have said is necessary. It's being distributed in several different ways, not just one. The transition houses by themselves is not the only need.
New question. The member for Lincoln.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Health, and it pertains once again to the question of health care accessibility. The Minister knows of the very serious threat to the lives of children between the ages of 2 and 5 from the Haemophilus B bacteria, which can cause meningitis and severe forms of croup. He will know about this because it was raised with him by my colleague from York Mills last February, and we're still waiting for that response, Mr. Speaker. Now it's 10 months later. Will the Minister tell us the status of distribution of the vaccine and the instruction and advice that he is offering public health officials across Ontario?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can't, for the honourable gentleman, quote verbatim any instructions. I will provide that information to him in terms of advice or whatever. I can tell the honourable gentleman that we are considering the ramifications of funding certain vaccinations for this particular program within the ministry, but I can't give him the verbatim information otherwise, but I will provide that to him at a later time.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, that's almost the identical answer that he gave the member for York Mills some 10 months ago. The vaccine costs approximately $15. It's not covered under OHIP. Children between the ages of 2 and 5 are very susceptible because they're in daycare centers, they're in pre-kindergarten centers. Surely to further improve the whole aspect of health care accessibility, the $15 cost of the vaccine should be included under the health insurance program, as is the case with other vaccines which are used in immunization programs. That cost would be, in our estimate, less than $2 million a year. Surely you can make that exception right away before we get into the season when this type of flu bacteria becomes very prevalent.
Minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable gentleman for his recommendations, and I'll certainly take them into consideration. The honourable members opposite will realize, of course, that the particular vaccine was only approved for use in Canada this past spring, and it has had to await that determination until now, until we had got the approval for use. It is now being used, as I understand, Mr. Speaker, by some individual physicians with respect to their patients, and I can tell the honourable members that we are reviewing possibilities of funding the vaccinations. But I will consider the strong recommendations of the honourable gentleman opposite, and I'm sure a number of his colleagues, as have been made suitably also by my colleagues in due course.
New question? The member for Riverdale.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Housing. The Ontario Association of Interval and Transition Houses tells us today that the major problem facing assaulted women and their families is the shortage of affordable housing. Will the Minister today tell the House what specific steps he's taken to remedy that problem and to provide affordable housing for assaulted women and their children?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member knew that earlier on in the legislature I stood up and gave a statement about the battered women, where we had opened up our doors to give them as a priority in the Ontario housing across the province, and this is being done. Not as fast as how I would have liked it, but it is being done. On the second part, what we're doing, Mr. Speaker, is that recently I announced 3,000 units to address to the hard-to-house people in this province. And I'm requesting all members in the House that if they know in their area that that there's a need there, to make the presentation to the ministry, and we are targeting those 3,000 to those hard-to-house, especially for battered women.
Supplementary?
Mr. Speaker, the Minister will know that it's not enough to open the doors, particularly when there is no room in the inn. Is the Minister aware that in spite of your 3,000 units for the hard-to-house, which I don't believe is the category into which you would put assaulted women and their families, but even with that 3,000 units, plus the 16,000 other units, the sods for which the Minister has been busy turning, that the vacancy rate will actually go down in Toronto, in Hamilton Wentworth, in Oshawa, and in Ottawa Carleton in the next year.
Minister?
Is he asking me that, Mr. Speaker, if I get the question, that the vacancy rate will go down because we are accommodating the battered women? Mr. Speaker, we know that it's a very serious situation we have on our hand, and we know that there's a lack of affordable homes here. That is why we addressed 19,000 units this year alone towards affordable housing. Mr. Speaker, it is quite a great increase to the 6,000 that was previously done in 1984. And I know that that's not adequate, but as the program goes on for the next 5 years of putting 6,700 units, Mr. Speaker, we are sure that that vacancy rate will rise.
New question? The member for Cochrane South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Minister of Industry, Trade and Technology with respect to the WIDA investment. The Minister will be aware that there's clear information that the proceeds of the investment of your government in WIDA were invested to pay off, to some degree, to pay off the outstanding loans or debts that the company had. One of those was a shareholder's loan in the name of the president of that company personally for approximately $450,000. The Minister will be aware that that loan was never examined by your officials, by those acting on behalf of IDEA Corporation, to substantiate it, to see whether or not money actually flowed from the president personally to that company, and therefore that the promissory note was evidence of a real debt. We know that on the day that the government money was advanced, that payment was made to the president of the company in circumstances that neither you or I would tolerate in our day-to-day affairs. Knowing this, just one example, will the minister agree that a full judicial inquiry is needed to clear up this mess?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, of course, one of the problems that we have had dealing with as a new government is that we've had to deal with such organizations as BUILD, that an organization which you set up. We've had to deal, you set it up, it was your board of directors, there were your rules, we only took it over on June the 30th. Let me tell you that I also am concerned about any investment such as this, and as I mentioned to you before, the investigation will continue underneath the Public Accounts Committee, Mr. Bedell, and the receiver that we hope to send in.
The member for Durham York has a supplementary? No. The member for Brantford?
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker. I think the minister is somewhat confused. It's your slush fund we're talking about, not ours.
Question.
There are $3 million of public funds. $3 million of public funds, and all you've done is stonewall and whitewash every step of the way. Every step of the way, stonewalling and whitewashing from this government.
And the
I want to ask the minister.
Question.
After this matter was originally raised in the House, your Premier came in with an incredible statement trying to whitewash the whole affair. You've been trying to do the same ever since. How can we have any trust in any internal inquiry you'll be undertaking? Why will you not do the honourable thing and put this out to a public inquiry?
Minister.
Of course.
Minister.
I believe that you are a little misinformed. It was your slush fund, not ours. It was your slush. I would just like...
The member for Brantford seems to be quite exercised. Did you want an answer? Order. Did you order? Order. New question. The member for Ottawa Centre. Question.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Community Social Services. The Minister knows that the City of Toronto since 1984 has been providing an operating grant to non-profit daycare centres. These are not municipal centres, but non-profit centres. And he also knows that what they've managed to accomplish in the City of Toronto through this method is to provide for substantially increased payments for the care providers and to hold down costs to parents. Can I ask the Minister, when is his government going to follow the lead of the City of Toronto and provide the same kind of direct grants that will help families in Ontario find daycare for their children?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member will be aware of the fact that our Premier was in Vancouver just this past couple of weeks and indicated very clearly and very publicly that this province wants to move forward in the area of direct grants and income testing to deal with both of the problems that she's just enunciated, the problem of low wages and the problem of high fees, and had asked the federal government to cooperate with us in making it possible for us to move forward in this area.
Supplementary.
This minister is trying to pull a gag here in this House. He knows perfectly well that his government, and indeed the Conservatives before him, could have brought in the same kind of program as the City of Toronto is now operating with federal funding through existing arrangements with the federal government. Why is the government not now providing direct grants and not now providing the kind of income testing that you're talking about? What are you waiting for? Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is also aware of the fact that at the present time in the province of Ontario, almost 50% of all the licensed daycare spaces are in the commercial sector, which under the existing cost sharing with the federal government cannot receive direct grants or income testing. We at the present time can't turn our backs on half of the licensed daycare spaces in this province. What we're asking for is at least a transition period whereby we can deal with this issue as well as the nonprofit.
New question. The member for Cochrane South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Minister of Industry, Trade and Technology, who will know by now, having read his notes, the finding of the committee was, Mr. Speaker, that the officials of IDEA Corporation that he had employed changed the nature of the investment as a result of a breakfast meeting on April 10th, attended by Mr. Dobzinski, attended by Mr. Kaplan, and attended by one other individual, and that decision was never taken to the Board of Directors. He will know that the funds we are talking about were allocated by the Treasurer for this fiscal year for disbursement under IDEA Corporation and not from previous funds. Having known that, having known the findings of the committee, that there was a $30,000 payment paid to Ivan Fleischman, a self-described Liberal hack, having known that there was payments to a spouse of a cabinet minister in total of about $34,000, and having known that the debts that were paid off were not substantiated on closing, he knows all of this. Why will he not do? And he knows that this matter was discussed in his office since 1985. He knows it was discussed in his office. Will he not remove it from his office now and have a judicial inquiry?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I have commented on a couple of occasions, the IDEA Corporation was set up by your government. There were your directors that were there. There were your employees. And we moved to take and close down the IDEA Corporation, mainly because of some of the things that have happened there. I can tell you that I have instructed our ministry staff to cooperate fully with the public account system. We have placed Mr. Bedell in there to do an investigation, and we'll do what we can to make sure that it is followed through.
Supplementary. Supplementary, the member for Cochrane South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Supplementary. The minister knows full well that the inquiry by the Public Accounts Committee found that these issues were inappropriate, that there was a clear conflict of interest. He knows full well from the information given to the committee that at least one occasion there was officials in your office involved in discussing this financing deal. Remove it from your office. Why won't you have a judicial inquiry and protect those records so that we can all find out what really happened?
Here, here.
Minister.
As far as I know, the records are being protected, and I certainly wouldn't want to find out that they weren't, and I don't think you're questioning my integrity on this. I don't believe that you are. But let me tell you, that is one of the reasons that we have appointed Mr. Bedell to look into it. It's one of the reasons that we have asked Pete Marwick to go in as a receiver, and it's one of the reasons that the whole matter is under investigation. We have cooperated, I believe, fully with the Public Accounts Committee.
New question. The member. Order. The member for Bellwoods.
I have a question for the Treasurer, who's still, I believe, the Minister in charge of pension policy. The Treasurer will know that the federal government has now released application forms for Canada Pension Plan, which include for the first time a section on the form, when do you wish your retirement pension to begin? And as one of the architects of these changes to the Canada Pension Plan, it was a federal-provincial initiative that was taken, and Ontario had to exercise its approval for voluntary early retirement from age 60 under the Canada Pension Plan. My question to the Treasurer is this. At a maximum benefit of $340 per month, or $4,080 a year in early retirement benefits under the Canada Pension Plan, how many people in this province does the Treasurer think will be able to actually retire at age 60?
Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, I don't expect anyone would be able to retire at that age unless they were disabled and therefore had access to additional revenue or had built up certain other assets that would assist them at that level. The honourable member would recall raising this in the estimates of the Treasury 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was able to inform him and the other members of the House that the Treasury experts had made a a review of the costs of extending programs that are normally allocated to retired persons over the age of 65, and those numbers are already on the record. Although they're large, they are not so large that they should not have careful consideration in the development of policy, which would parallel the change in the Canada Pension Plan, which now allows retirement between the age of 60 and 70 at the decision of the individual.
Supplementary?
Well, again, I asked the Treasurer if he can enlighten us as to why on earth he would participate in the approval and development of a scheme which has no practical application of any kind unless somebody is independently wealthy. But by way of supplementary, can the Treasurer tell us when Ontario will bring in a supplementary benefits program, an Ontario early retirement pension plan that would permit citizens in this province to take advantage of voluntary early retirement at age 60, perhaps starting with workers in heavy industry and workers in companies where the employer agrees to replace early retirees with young workers? When does the Treasurer intend to bring in a program that will make this a meaningful possibility?
Treasurer?
I think the honourable member should not dismiss out of hand the possibility that a number of people employed in this province over a number of years have built up savings and resources that would permit them to undertake at least the consideration of a retirement earlier than 65, and the additional payments from Canada Pension Plan would be useful and advantageous for them. I'm aware that the New Democratic Party has a program which would advocate earlier retirement, and just as we pay attention to all of the New Democratic programs, we are looking at this one.
New question, the member for Wentworth North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Minister of Community and Social Services. Is the Minister aware that the landlord from which his ministry currently rents space for children mental health services in Hamilton has served notice that the lease will be canceled in the very near future? And is the Minister prepared to look at the possibility of relocating these services into the new East End Healthcare facility when it's available?
Minister?
Couple things. Mr. Speaker, the representatives from Hamilton Wentworth region were in to see me a few weeks ago asking if we would transfer the location of our Children's Mental Health Center. I pointed out to them at that time that we were located in a commercial building and that the rent and the renovations for the newer building were much higher than what we were paying where we were, and that quite frankly, unless they could get a better deal for us, I couldn't afford to divert children's mental health money for that purpose. I have just recently learned that, in fact, we may have to give up that lease, and if that's the case, we're prepared to sit down again and attempt to negotiate a deal with the East End Health Clinic.
New question, the member for Carleton Grenville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Attorney General. Mr. Attorney General, could you tell us the scope of the police investigation looking into the conduct of the Solicitor General, and at what cost this will be to the taxpayer of Ontario? Mr. Attorney General, why is any investigation necessary since the Solicitor General has admitted to drinking openly while the OPP vote was underway? And why don't you just lay the charge like the case of 800 other ordinary citizens in Ontario?
The honourable member knows, as the honourable member knows, it's the responsibility of the police to lay charges. I can answer his questions. As I understand it from the Metropolitan Toronto Police, their investigation will be a complete and full one. It will involve no direct cost to the Government of Ontario.
Supplementary.
Inspector Niche of the Metro Toronto Police has said that his investigation will be lasting approximately another week. Will the Minister agree and assure this House that the report on the investigation will be tabled in this House once it has been completed?
Attorney General.
As the honourable member knows, reports are made to the Ministry of the Attorney General. We are not in the practice, for reasons I have previously given to the House, of revealing the complete report. I will be glad to look at the report when it is at hand and see if there is any reason why it should not be released to the House.
New question, the member for Hamilton East.
I have another question of the Treasurer with regards to pensions. My colleague just raised the question of early retirement, and the Treasurer indicated that some workers may have built up some assets that would allow them to retire early. The Treasurer will be aware that if they have an early retirement bridging arrangement under the private plans, that they will lose that or lose most of that money if indeed they take advantage of the early retirement under CPP. And when I asked the Premier about this back on the 21st of October, he indicated that he would talk to you and the appropriate minister and get back to us as to whether or not you were prepared to take a look at closing this loophole. Can you tell us where we stand on this at the moment?
Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, I think the honourable member took part in the discussions at the time of the Treasury estimates on this matter, and we're looking at the cost of extending gains below the age of 65, extending assistance under drug benefit programs, and quite a wide range of programs that are available to our residents in Ontario, citizens of Canada, over the age of 65. That I'm not prepared to give the honourable member anything specific on this. It's being reviewed by people in Treasury along with many other aspects of our policy.
Supplementary?
Well, the Treasurer will know that the current policy negates the ability to take an early retirement. And he will also be aware that the province of Quebec amended their pension legislation in 1984 to allow for early retirement, and at the same time that they amended their pension legislation, they closed this particular loophole. Now, if Quebec could do it, why can't the province of Ontario do it?
Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, I think you're aware that pension legislation is pending. There's been all sorts of discussions involving bringing our pension requirements into some sort of parallel position vis-a-vis other provinces, and this matter is going to be debated extensively in the legislature and following that in the committees of the House.
New question, the member for Yorkview.
Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of Education. Last week, the Minister of Education made a statement on a new formula for adult education funding in this province. Can the Minister assure this House that this formula will not in any way lead to fees being charged to separate school supporters for vital adult education programs or the needless duplication of these programs across the province?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm delighted to have a question from my colleague from Yorkview on an important matter. I must say this question represents more by way of interest than I've heard from my friend from Durham West or Scarborough Centre, who clatter on quite noisily here this afternoon. Yes, Mr. Speaker, I can say to my friend from Yorkview that the new formula, which we believe is an important and positive response to the concern that has been identified, will address the concerns that the new formula will provide 100% funding to the approved, to the costs of delivering approved adult ed courses. And I want to say to you, Mr. Speaker, to the House, if I could just calm down my friend from Scarborough Centre, who's become more agitated than he has any right to be on a day like today. Mr. Speaker, the new formula will leave no board. Well, Mr. Speaker, the new formula will recognize the actual cost of providing the programs, and it will see substantial increases to many boards, and no school board will be worse off as a result of the new formula.
Supplementary, the member for Lambton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Supplementary to the Minister of Education. You have said this new funding mechanism is definitely going to improve the situation in a lot of school boards, and especially possibly to the Metro Toronto School Board. I am concerned, Mr. Minister, are you going to take anything away from the small and rural school boards? Can you assure me that this won't happen?
We're going to give them more, too.
Order. Order. The member for Scarborough Centre may have his turn shortly. Response, Minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I want to say to my friend from Lambton that we have recognized the need to make change. We have consulted widely. I had expected to hear from the official opposition as to what their advice would be, but 16 months of silence was all I heard.
Shame.
And it's remarkable that the member from Scarborough Centre can be on some matters silent, but on this important matter, he was much more silent than he is in question period. Now, Mr. Speaker, our new formula, I will say, Mr. Speaker, well, I'm still waiting, Mr. Speaker. I'm still waiting,
Interjections
Mr. Speaker.
are out of order.
I fear I shall wait much longer for constructive advice from the tatters of the once powerful Tory party in Ontario. Now, I want to say, Mr. Speaker, to my friend from Lambton that we will... Well. Mr. Speaker,
Order.
she has returned from Bahrain and all is peaceful in...
Order. Order. All interjections are out of order. The member for Scarborough Centre. There may be a further comment to your response.
Mr. Speaker, to the member from Brantford, I have a feeling I could make the member from York Mills Day a lot better and a lot quicker than the Leader of the Opposition. But I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that under the new funding formula, under the new formula, Mr. Speaker.
Order. 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 No one was paying. New question. The member for Oakville.
Mr. Speaker, the Treasurer was just laughing out loud about the Sunday shopping issue, and I thought maybe I'd ask a question of the Attorney General in this regard. He will be aware of the announcement this week by Simpsons that they intend to open all 11 of their Toronto area stores this coming Sunday, and that several other large stores will be opening in direct violation of the Retail Business Holidays Act. Can the Minister tell us whether he intends to attempt to enforce the law by laying charges and proceeding with them, or whether he's simply thrown in the towel, given up the ghost, and is going to allow this to continue unabated?
Attorney General.
As the honourable member knows, charges in these cases and in any others where stores remain open contrary to the law will continue to be laid. The reality is, as the honourable member also knows, that the Court of Appeal for Ontario has upheld the validity of the Act in question, and it represents the law of Ontario, notwithstanding that there is an appeal pending and argued in the Supreme Court of Canada. We have been laying charges where infractions occur. The courts have elected not to proceed with those charges pending a determination from the Supreme Court of Canada. But we will continue in this case to lay charges. I should add one other word, and that is that it is, to me, an offensive and shocking thing when, for whatever reason, one of the more responsible merchants in the community decides that it will consciously, as a matter of policy, break the law of the province established by the Court of Appeal. That can be forgiven in many cases where you're dealing with small wage earners, but it cannot be justified, in my opinion, even when there is a major economic motive to do so. And I hope that the Robert Simpson Company and other companies like them, which have a substantial public reputation in the province for integrity and honourable dealing, will reconsider and see fit to comply with the law that our court has fixed.
Hear, hear.
Well, Mr. Speaker, this government has seen...
Bring them into line.
Mr. Speaker, this government has seen fit to communicate with senior executives of companies when difficult problems have arisen in the immediate past, and I speak of Goodyear, of course. As soon as that problem arose, they were immediately on the phone to the Chief Executive Officer. Has the Attorney General arranged to meet with, or has he instigated any kind of a meeting with the president of Simpsons, with the president of the Bay, with any of these chief executive officers to attempt to instill some sense into the situation pending the Supreme Court decision?
Attorney General?
Speaker, I frankly don't regard it as my function to meet with officers of large corporations in order to invite them to comply with the law of the province of Ontario. Those large companies, and we're not talking about smaller people trying to feed their families, those large companies have a positive obligation to obey the law, and they will not get a bended knee for me asking them to do so.
New question. The member for Hamilton West. Scarborough Centre. The member for Hamilton West would like to ask a question.
Mr. Speaker, a question for the Minister of Labour in his capacity as the Minister responsible for the Ontario Human Rights Code. I have with me, Mr. Minister, a copy of The Enemies of Rambo doll. It's the only one in that series which has an ethnic-specific identification.
Shame.
It is clearly Arab. It is described as treacherous, unstable as the blowing desert sands, a desert scorpion, his only family a wandering band of cutthroats and thieves. Men without honor use their knowledge to carry out terrorist acts on innocent villages. I'm sure the minister recognizes the invidious racism of this product.
The question?
The company in question has ceased the importing of this doll, but the inventories are in for Christmas, and this is selling briskly in Hamilton, where I bought it, in Toronto and elsewhere.
Give us our money back.
Will the minister please advise us as to what he is doing as the administrator of the code to remove this doll from the shelves of Ontario stores so that it is not an insidious piece of racism beamed to our children this Christmas?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is the first that this matters that I've heard of this matter. It's the first time it's been brought to my attention, and I thank the honourable gentleman for doing so. Mr. Speaker, I will take up the matter with the officials of the commission and immediately, and I'll report back to the honourable member tomorrow.
All questions has expired.